Anybody signed up for public comment? Ladies and gentlemen, please bow your heads. Dear Lord, we ask tonight that you hear our prayers. Please be with us as we seek to glorify you in thought, word, and deed. We ask, Lord, that you also be with us as we behave in a manner that is always pleasing in your sight. Thank you for hearing our prayer. Amen. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let the record reflect that all members of the council are present. And we'll move into the approval of the agenda. Need a motion for the approval, please.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Little. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ross Bradley. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. That passes. Next, for approval of the consent agenda, this is the council minutes from June 2nd and June 9th. The Historic Preservation Commission meeting minutes, Downtown Development Authority minutes, and Convention and Visitors Bureau minutes. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Bradley. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Little. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Miss Adcock. Matt, did I see your mom? Oh, she's covered up in grandchildren. Sorry, Regina. Could I get you to, somebody from the family to step forward? Regina, you don't have to get up with children in your lap. Hey, ladies, thank y'all for coming. I like your mask. Regina, we wanted to thank you for allowing Wayne to be part of our team and away from your family for much of 16 years. He was a good friend to us. He was a good friend to the city, and I know you miss him, and we do too. And those little girls are very lucky to have him in their lives for a short time. And I'm sure you will get to know your grandfather through all the stories, right? This says, in appreciation of Wayne Adcock for his loyal and dedicated service to the city of Monroe from January 1994 through April of 2020, and for serving as vice mayor for over 23 years. I was off by 7, but 23. Thank you. Bye, sweetie. Thank you. Tonight, we do not have any public comments, so let's move directly to department reports. Mr. Probst, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quick note on the COVID situation around here. We're trying to stay fluid in everything that we do, making adjustments on the fly as needed in our services, in the court system, meeting appointments here in City Hall and other facilities. So it changes by the day in how we measure our response, but as of now, we're still allowing scheduled meetings to take place in our facilities. With the numbers that are in our general area, I don't know that we'll be lifting any of that anytime soon. That wouldn't be my recommendation at this point. So I'll keep you abreast as we move forward if anything changes COVID related. A quick update on the truck bypass. I know this is long awaited, 30 or 40 year deal, depends on who you talk to. We had a very constructive meeting the mayor joined us for with literally all of the top brass of the Georgia Department of Transportation last week. And they are ensuring that this is a priority for the city of Monroe, which was good to hear because, you know, I got word that it had backed up a little bit due to right-of-way acquisition on a lot of the parcels. It is a 5-mile route with 80 parcels, so there's a lot that goes into that. But they are going to throw extra resources at it, and I want to thank Representative Williamson for getting that meeting teed up after we had a good phone call about the necessity of it. So that was good to have, but it was very encouraging that They at least want to try to start construction in 18 to 24 months, is what they're saying. So they're going to go on probably the most aggressive right-of-way acquisition schedule that GDOT's had in quite some time. Other than that, we just have multiple projects going on in the city in all different phases, from design, engineering, about to start construction on a few things, but everybody's still very busy here. If you have any questions about anything in particular, I'll be happy to answer those at this time.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll move to Mr. Bailey, Central Services.
Thank you, sir. To kind of piggyback on that about us getting back busy and getting back going, you can look at the purchasing numbers for June. P-card transaction purchase orders were actually back up because we're back full bore, full go, getting things done. The police department is still building away. They've gotten a lot done. I actually think, Mr. Mayor, you had went out and took a tour of everything. They've gotten everything walled up and working towards a lot of it, minus the municipal court side, simply because they're using that for access to the rest of the building. So that's moving along. We're still on plan for the end of this year. Let's keep fingers crossed that it stays that way. The other thing I wanted to mention too, during the month of June, the 14th through the 20th, you guys saw daily kind of social media blast for solid waste. It was Waste and Recycling Workers Week that week, and we participated as heavily as we could with the current COVID situation, but just a big thank you to those guys and to Danny and everything that they've done during all this, and that was to kind of help hopefully emphasize to the community the importance that our solid waste workers actually play, and they never had a day off. So just wanted to point that out. The other thing that I wanted to say too was starting July 12th, we will actually have 7 days of coverage with trash collection at the parks and downtown and whatnot. Gotten that organized through the grounds crew, and they're willing to come in, and we're gonna cover the city on all that 7 days a week, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
That's great, Chris. Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll move to the monthly finance report. Beth?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll quickly go over what's been going on in the finance department for the last month. We have implemented the online forms for the utility forms, so those have been uploaded, and we have seen great success with that. We're trying to get the word out that we're offering that online, so customers don't have to actually come into the office or through the drive-thru to utilize that. We have started beta testing of the average monthly payment, which is also called budget billing. We have started doing beta testing for some employees, so we hope to roll that out towards the end of the year for customers. The report you have before you is as of May, and revenues and expenditures should be about at 42%. General fund expenditures are below budget at 38%, which is good. Utility revenues and expenses are at budget. Solid waste revenues are actually above budget at 46%, and their expenses are below budget at 36%. So overall, all the departments are doing good. Our loss collections for the month of May sales that we received just this past week was actually a 16% increase over this time last year. So at $223,000. So our sales tax dollars continue to increase compared to what they were last year at this time. So that is a good indicator of what's going on here in the city of Monroe. Next, we did receive the $32,000 award from the Department of Justice, which is part of the CARES Act that we will be hopefully receiving in the next couple months. And last but not least, the state allocation of the CARES funding. We received word, and some of y'all might have gotten the email from ECG, that Monroe is eligible to receive up to $715,000 of COVID-related expense reimbursement. So we were excited to get that information because originally when the CARES Act was implemented back March or April, that was only for populations of 500,000 or more, and the state has opted to fund local governments with populations lower than that. So that's how we were able to get that, so it's come from the state. So We want to thank Governor Kemp for that. So hopefully that'll help with our COVID expenses that we've incurred over the last couple of months. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Are there any questions for Beth? I have two, Beth. 16% sales tax increase year over year with being fairly shut down,
I'm sorry.
with being fairly shut down in town.
Right, yes, yeah, very impressive.
Yeah, quite, and kudos to everybody for making that work and helping those folks be available downtown, and the strength of our downtown corridor is mighty impressive. Next, $750,000 for COVID for CARES relief.
Yes, that'll be reimbursement specifically for COVID-related expenses from March till December of this year.
Okay, and that includes additional pay for first responders and the team that was out in the field. Great, thank you.
I did have one question, Mr. Mayor. What was the program we were talking about, beta testing?
That is for the budget billing for utility customers. With our new software, we had to be on it for a year. July will be a year that we've been on it. And so what that does is it's almost like a levelized budget billing, so that a customer's bill doesn't have your peaks and valleys in the winter or the summer months. It kind of levels it out. For instance, we had a customer that his bill, normally he would have had to pay $470-something this month, where he's only had to pay $450-something. So it'll level it out within a certain percentage amount, but we're beta testing it now just to see how it works, make sure it works the way that we intend it. And then we'll have to get a policy in place before we roll it out to the customers.
Thank you.
I got a question. How do y'all pick and choose who you gonna, that you gonna actually start off testing with?
It's only employees right now, and I sent an email out to all city council to see if anyone wanted to opt in to be on the testing for it.
Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move to the monthly airport report. Mr. Bailey?
Thank you, sir. The one big thing of note, we actually got our TA letter, our tentative allocation letter from the DOT yesterday. We were actually awarded the full rehabilitation of the runway, funding from the state and the federal government for $1.253 million. So that'll be this coming, the project year that started, last Wednesday. We've done the study and done everything, so of this, the city will be responsible for only $52,000, and that repaves the entire runway. So we're a little bit worried that we weren't going to get that based on everything that's gone on, but we're excited to actually see it yesterday. That was a lot of hard work by staff, and I appreciate council's help through the process too. And then two, just a little bit, over the last, since August of 2015, we have actually, within the fenced area of the airport, actually performed $3.34 million worth of improvements to the airport, and that's safety functions, that's different equipment, that's your, like your AWAS, your fuel farm, the different things that we've done. So we have made major leaps and bounds at that airport in the last 5 years. So that's a thank you, and that's a big number to hang our hat on. A lot of it grant funded, but a lot of it was city funded too. So thank y'all, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bailey? We'll talk to you in a minute about some more airport news, right? That on the agenda?
Oh, yeah, at the end.
Moving to Mr. Smith. Solid Waste, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Real briefly, our projects at transfer station is coming along pretty good. We've completed half of the welding. We got to get inside the building to finish the inside, which is kind of tough because we don't want to interrupt the flow. The fence is up. We just got to put in some mesh screening. The transfer station tonnage, we're trending up compared to last year. The deposit is up by 419 tons compared to May last year. And the last thing I have is we're proposing to start our glass collection August 3rd. We've attached a flyer to see what we're collecting, primarily just glass bottles and jars. We have a list of items that you can't put in it. And there will be no charge for it. Customers want to participate, just give us a call, and we'll bring you a bin. All right, take any questions you may have. Also, I just want to thank Chris for his media support for the event that he mentioned last month. It was kind of a last-minute kind of deal, but we do appreciate all the guys. They do work hard and smart. So at this particular time, we can say that they've been safe, and we thank the customers, too, for helping make that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any questions?
Daniel, the glass recycling flyer, is that going in with utility bills, or how we notifying the public of this?
We'll do some more media, social media props, and we actually can put the flyer, actual flyer, along with the bin for the customer, or any way we can get it out, because it's going to be kind of selective and voluntary, so we don't want to just flood a whole lot of paper. We just want to make sure the customers get direct message.
That is great news. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing that. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move to streets and transportation. Jeremiah? Social distance.
Social distancing. Just highlighting a few areas from the report. Street crew's done a significant amount of sidewalk repair throughout the downtown corridor, and we're going to continue to do so on a planned basis, kind of working inside the downtown area, moving out with some rehab and repairs in those areas. Our side boom mower is running every day. That's probably been one of the greatest purchases I've been a part of. It really makes a difference out on the right of way. We've done some asphalt patching over the past couple of weeks, making some improvements there for our infrastructure. Recently, last week, I sat in on a pre-construction meeting for the traffic calming project on Church and Davis. Hopefully, by the end of this month, if not the first week of August, those Triscapes, a contractor, will mobilize in those areas and working on a 90-day contract, 120-day finalized contract to get that done. They're excited to be moving on it. We're excited to be part of it. I think it's going to be a great project in that area. Other than that, I'll make it short and sweet. Be glad to entertain any questions regarding that project or the report.
Are there any questions for Mr. Still? Do you know how they're structured? Is Davis going first or is Church going first?
They're still working out some of the subcontractors, and I think that will determine exactly which area gets what first.
All right, thank you, sir. Moving to electric and telecom, did I see Mr. Thompson?
First thing is our new line truck was delivered a month early. We have just finished decommissioning the old one and moving that over to Mr. Middlebrooks' department for them to pull and replace pumps at the wastewater plant and other facilities. We've been working in the Pinecrest, Pine Circle, McDaniel, Breelove a lot lately. We've had an imbalance between the circuits. The amperage on certain phases has gone way up. So you'll see us in that area pulling wire, changing conductor, fixing anything we find in that area to get those, and swapping load from one phase to the other to get those back in level. Part of it is the expansion at St. Ives. They've added a lot of new houses there over the past year. And of course those are big houses with high amperage pulls, and of course that's part of it. But there's other issues there that we're trying to figure out and correct. We have to keep those things within a 5 or 10% difference, and there's a big gap in the phases. So we're getting that pulled around. An update to the pavilion project design. We've had to move our line to the north side of the MEAG high line that goes through the project, mainly because of the amount of dirt that they moved that caused a big hill in a certain area that we just couldn't work with. So we've worked with the developer and with MEAG. Our change in design has gone to MEAG and is for their approval. Spoke with the contractor today, and we hope to have them construction power on site sometime the 1st of August. And I'll take any questions y'all may have.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Are there any questions? Hearing none, Mr. Middlebrooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple updates on some projects we got going on. Crews have started the Snows Mill Road, Jones Woods Road, gas expansion. Started that about a week and a half ago. Harrison and Harrison will begin the Highway 11 South rehab project next week. This is replacing the 4 miles of 4-inch steel, high pressure, replacing it with plastic, and we've reduced the pressure on that line. The Highway 11 Loganville water line is going well, about 65% complete now. Got a couple of road bores to finish, and I got the major one, is the major crossing is the Alcovey River. Dewey Hogan Road, that's been completed. Crews started pressure testing today. And then we completed the water main's been extended to the MAB development. They have water on site now, so they can begin the foundations and structures. Wanted to mention, we had one emergency purchase this month. Our VACON truck, which is our vacuum trucks used by many of the departments here. The 2 hydrostatic pumps went out. These pumps are, actually the company went out of business. Since then, the few parts that were left, we've got them, and we had ours rebuilt about 4 times with them. Can no longer get parts for them. We got it down there, and it was looking at a $50,000 fix. When they tore into it, realized the transfer case was actually damaged as well. So our total cost to repair this truck, $76,607.60. The replacement cost for this truck is in the high 200s, early 300s. So it's we've had this truck 16 years now, and it's still in really good shape. So I think it's a good investment. As far as repair goes, I believe we can get another 15 out of it. So, and then just make you aware of an out-of-state travel later this month. We'll be traveling down to Foley, Alabama, to see the first sewer plant retrofit with the Aqua Narita technology. This is the research and development that we went to in Chicago last year. They just completed this plant. It's similar to ours, so it gives us a chance to see how that's going and how that may play into our plant when we get ready to do a rehab. If you got any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Rodney. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Hearing none, we'll move to the fire report. Chief Owens?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Overall, as you can see, our numbers have come up in the month of May, and that's somewhat expected because we had COVID and no one was calling 911, and then once that backed off, everyone wanted to go to the hospital. So our numbers are a little skewed as far as that go coming into May. Our hydrant testing is done. We're still doing maintenance. We still have 1 or 2 zones left, and we'll be probably finishing up the rest of this month. And then one note I did want to make, back in March and April, I did have some incorrect numbers on the fire loss save report that's down there. Data in, data out. So there's some little bit confusion when we were pulling data, and so that has been corrected, and that is updated and correct now. Only other thing I have is, those of you who haven't heard, our fire marshal is leaving us. He's going back to Detroit. He's from Detroit originally for family reasons, and so they're leaving us. His last day will be Friday. He's been with us 15 years, and he's done a marvelous job as fire marshal, so we're definitely going to miss him, but already in the works. Hopefully start doing some interviews next week and get that position refilled. Be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? The only one I have, I got a request yesterday from the Boys and Girls Club. They're looking at the weekend of September 5th for their fireworks.
Okay.
They have asked if we could move it to Felker from Athens Tech. they don't have to pay for the bathrooms, they have more space. I needed you to see if that's an area we can actually do that. We can probably see them better from downtown. And then let us know whether or not we need to work with the fireworks company and
We'd
check
have-
with them too.
We would definitely have to, that has to go back to the fireworks company because it's their insurance at the end of the day. So it would have to go back through them, but it wouldn't take a minute. We could pull it up on a map. And really, it comes down to buildings and how far away, but that shouldn't be much of an issue. And I can send it back to Logan and he can let you guys know.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Chief Watts, police report.
Thank you, Mayor. You can see our numbers before you here. We actually responded to 1,963 calls for service here in the community. Our officers are still doing high numbers of area checks, close to 10,000. We are seeing that our Part 1, Part 2 crimes are up, and we did make a total of 84 arrests for that month. Some significant cases that we solved in May, our criminal investigation division solved 6 different forgery cases. They also arrested 6 suspects that were in connection with 2 stolen vehicles and several in autos. One significant one was they did make an arrest on a subject that was impersonating a police officer, and thankfully we got that guy off the road. Our joint operations unit, which is our narcotics units, took and executed 3 search warrants that removed several narcotics and weapons off the road, and made a total of themselves, out of the 84 adult arrests, 41 of those was from that proactive joint operations unit, so very, very proud of them. One of the things we did get here recently is the 10 Tahoes that we had purchased. We've picked up 8 of those, so we're looking at putting those on the road here pretty soon, and got the other 2 that's in line to be delivered in the next week or so. So I'm excited about that. I'm ready to get these Dodge Chargers off the road and just have a complete fleet of these black Tahoes that look more professional, in my opinion. So, but that's all I have. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for the chief? Hearing none, we'll move to code report. Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report you have in front of you there is for the month of May. We had 47 permits pulled in that month. 4 new businesses got licenses. Had 11 businesses that closed. Some of those were change of ownership, so there really weren't a net loss. Major projects, we still have the Main Street apartments going on at 698 South Broad Street. They're looking to be leasing and, for the most part, full by the end of the year. So it's a pretty aggressive schedule. I hope they can accomplish it, and we're going to help them in any way that we can to get that done. John's Supermarket's now completed. They had their building expansion completed some time ago, but now the restaurant's in operation, fully functional. Haven't had opportunity to try it yet, but I heard it's great. And then Monroe Self-Storage is still going on, as well as the Row, as far as ongoing projects. Just a little update that's not from May, but for the MAB project, they are working in a pretty aggressive schedule. We've got the public's plans reviewed and ready to go, so as soon as they award their contractor and are ready to get started on that, and everything else is ironed out in place, then they can start on that right away. And we'll have the rest of the plans being reviewed and approved as their schedule requires. Continuing on the report, the city marshals removed 66 signs in May, did 276 repair cleanup orders and re-inspections, investigated 2 tampering cases and issued 6 citations. And the balance of the report is historic preservation that didn't meet in May, and planning commission, if you have any questions on that.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kelly?
Patrick, I didn't catch your update on the Main Street apartments on South Broad. How's that coming?
They're moving along on schedule. They've got a pretty aggressive completion date, which I hope they can accomplish, but they're looking to be leased up by the end of the year.
Completed construction and leased people?
Yes, sir.
Two things, Patrick. One, spoke with Greg Thompson a few weeks ago, and just wanted to tell you, you and our entire customer service team how much he appreciates the work that y'all have done, helping him cross the T's and dot the I's. I know you don't get a lot of pats on the back, you get a little more complaints, so I want to say that. And the other, I met with Lee Rowell today, expect to be paving that road to the new development starting next week. And I think that's probably pretty aggressive. It really might be the week after. And they're expecting Publix to break ground first part of next month, so just kind of an FYI. Are there any additional questions for Patrick? Hearing none, Ms. Crosnick, Economic Development Report.
Thank you very much. You have the report in front of you. The DDA stabilization grants have all been awarded. That's the total amount of grant funds, number of businesses. 52 businesses applied and received the grants, and 375 jobs were preserved with those. And we're in the phase now where everyone is turning in their reports of how the grant funds were used. And every recipient has turned in a report except for 3, so it's pretty good. Our farmers market is going face-to-face, and we have a little promo now where we're selling our event T-shirts. So we usually sell at events, but we don't have events because of COVID. So we're selling those online, and people can pick a downtown business to receive the proceeds of the shirt. And so that number is actually about $350 has been given directly to businesses through that little promotion. GMA conference was last week. Hopefully some of you guys sat in on those sessions, and Monroe was featured in at least 2 that I was a part of. So congratulations on having a reputation that the state wanted to look to us to learn from. And our DDA monthly meetings are this Thursday, but we're going to use the whole day to review our community strategic work plan and come up with ideas. So if y'all have thoughts or things that you'd like us to consider and focus, please let me know that in the next couple days, and we'll be doing all that work on Thursday, and be happy to answer any other questions you have about the report.
Thank you, Sadie. Are there any questions?
I will say, too, activity is much higher than we anticipated post-COVID as far as new businesses locating and activity with Nextsite and retail recruitment. We're pleasantly surprised with the progress that's happening at this time.
And I'm not sure if any of you caught Sadie's performance on the GMA conference for placemaking. It was outstanding. It was probably the only one that that I did not have cut out on me, 3 and 4 times.
Great.
So good, thank you. Parks report, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, sir. Quick update on Pilot Park, and I included some pictures because I thought it looked really nice compared to what's there and what it'll look like when we get it done. The shipping date for the equipment is July 31st, so look for demo grading and some of the work to begin the end of July, and let's hope for about a 4 to 6 week lead time to get that completely done, reopened, and hope everything with this virus cooperates so we can actually have a grand reopening of the park. Childers, we actually signed off on and resubmitted the completion notice to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that permitted the project. Right now, we have one side that looks really well with grass growing, and the other side washed down somewhere probably around Huddle House. So there, that area will look really green in about a month. But we're going to come back and we're going to hit it again. And then as soon as fence material and whatnot comes in from a contractor, we're going to fence in around the actual pond itself. But that's looking great. And then other than that, I mean, I had sent out, we had the discussion last month, and I'll jump into it again about the different buildings and facilities at the parks, and I had sent out kind of an estimate. We had a contractor come in and look at repairing what was there. Then they priced out kind of what it would be if you demoed and you completely rebuilt to a new specification, and I just kind of wanted to re-breach that, and any suggestions on what we want to jump into as far as what do we want to do? I mean, as far as fixing it.
You mentioned in the email there was a budget number that the contractor gave, but I was curious about Larry's question. What exactly was he budgeting when he was talking about renovating the existing structures?
That was everything from the interior, like the toilets, the fixtures, the sinks. You'd have to put in fans. That was rewiring any electrical, the plumbing, your partitions in the buildings. And the one thing that I had discussed with Mr. Bradley and Mr. Little before the meeting, the footprint on these buildings are much larger than what you would put at parks nowadays. Most of them would have like, you'd walk in and you'd have, 2 restroom facilities essentially with a couple of sinks, maybe a mirror, things like that. These are bigger, open spaces, so there's more to repair. So, I mean, it adds to that cost when you get to repairing it. And one thing that Mr. Little had mentioned is if we take down some of the sheet rock, some of the wood, and again, that would be a revisit with a contractor for an estimate, and just block that up as well, so you have less stuff to essentially damage and that's the thing. You're gonna have people damage things, and I just wanna go back and rebuild them to the point that we can lessen what can be damaged and destroyed and what can go wrong, so that it decreases our expense over the long haul. But there's gonna be money involved. So it's just, we've kinda gotta pick what we wanna do and how we wanna do it, and then, I'll go with it. So, it's something that we can think about, talk about at a later date. I can continue to pursue different options and just,
Well, it was it's just a general estimate.
I just wanted an estimate on what we're
Come back
looking
and
at.
get bids and all that.
Correct. You can expect the bids to be 5,000-10,000 lower.
Are there any additional questions? Any recommendations?
I think Matthews is still, the most viable to get something done as far as restrooms, because it seems to be the most utilized.
Well, and that one's in the best shape. That
Right.
building is, so what if I say, for instance, maybe get a couple of bids on that, and we come back in August and discuss completely rehabbing that particular facility?
I know somebody had reached out about hosting a weekend disc golf tournament for the Southeast. Did they reach out to you about that?
No, they typically do them on Wednesdays is when the bigger crowd's out there.
Yeah.
And because of everything that had been going on, we don't have anything as far as documentation or lease agreements or agreements in place to where we were willing to just give one organization access to the park for an entire day, especially on the weekend. We wanted it more so open to the public. I just thought that was probably a better way to go, but we can, in the future, I think, probably look at that as we rehab more parks and there's more availability.
Anything else? Hearing none, thank you, Chris. Move to new business, 2019 PAFR. Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor. You have before you the 2019 Popular Annual Financial Report, which is also known as the PAFR. The PAFR is a brief summary of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which is also the CAFR, that Adam with Malden Jenkins went over in detail last month. This actually goes above and beyond what is required of us as a city to keep in order with transparency. And this is available on our website for citizens. This will be the 16th year that we have submitted this to the GFOA. If we get this award for this PAFR, it'll be, like I said, the 16th year that we have received that award. So hopefully we anticipate getting that award again. I won't go over it in detail. You have it before you, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. It's just a brief summary of what the CAFR is.
Are there any additional questions, comments? Thank you, Beth. Moving to the speed limit change on Alcovey Street and McDaniel Street. Mr. Still?
Mr. Mayor, what you have before you is a recommendation that we're seeking approval to lower the speed limit on 2 sections of 2 separate streets on Alcovey Street. The last section going out of town is posted at 45 miles an hour around the golf course area. On the McDaniel Street, from Breedlove to the city limits, it's posted at 45, and due to numerous citizen requests, council requests, we wanted to look into being able to lower the speed limits from 45 to 35 on these sections of streets, as well as be able to maintain the right to operate our radars for the police department and be able to enforce that. What that took was an ETI, an engineered traffic investigation. We had Keck and Wood perform that. Our requests were justified through the report that you have attached to to this item, and we're just seeking approval so we can get that done and lower those speed limits in those two areas. Be glad to take any questions.
Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Larry Bradley, a second by Mr. Norman Garrett, and a third by Lee Malcolm. Is there-
Now, when you're getting some signs put up out there, I drove in this afternoon just looking at coming this direction on McDaniel. There's a sign, speed limit sign right at the city limit, and there's not another one on this stretch. So I would just recommend there be more than one.
Yes, in the ETI, there were several suggested things that we do when we implement this, and there was a couple of areas that were going to be beefed up with some signage that the engineers recommended that we put in place. That as little a cost that's going to be involved, we're going to do that as soon as we get through the approval.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Is there any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the approval of the purchase of 4 Wilo pumps for sewer lift stations. Rodney?
Thank you, Mayor. Asking for your approval tonight to purchase 4 Wheelo pumps for the Ammons Bridge and the Vine Street pump stations. This is a CIP item. I just didn't have the quotes in the budget when we was doing the budget last year. So I'm bringing it before you tonight. J.H. Wright and Associates was the low bid. Wheelo Pumps is the only pump that is a direct replacement or direct fit. The other two required some massive reconfiguration of pipes and such. So it allows us to save the installation costs because we can install those ourselves. So the total price is get back to it here. $148,657. That's for 4 new pumps.
Thank you, Mr. Middlebrooks. Are there any questions for Rodney? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
A motion by Mr. Ross Bradley. Do you hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nathan Little. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving to the appointment of the Historic Preservation Commission. Mr. Mitch Alligood is not here. He had resigned his position earlier in the year on the Historic Preservation Commission, but has expressed a desire to return. I need a motion to reappoint him to finish out his 3-year term.
I'll move to approve.
A motion by Mr. Ross Bradley. Do I hear a second? Second by Mr. Larry Bradley. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the resolution for the ECG voting delegate. This motion basically will appoint Larry Bradley as vice mayor to be our alternate voting delegate for ECG annual meeting. Board of Directors will do the same in just a second for MEAG as well. Mr. Rosenthal, would you read the resolution, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Be it resolved, the Mayor of the City Council of the City of Monroe, that John Howard is hereby appointed to serve as the city's voting delegate for the annual Electric Cities of Georgia, Inc. Board of Directors election with authority to cast all votes to which the city is entitled. Larry Bradley is appointed as an alternate voting delegate. So resolved this 7th day of July 2020. That is the resolution, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Mr. Rosenthal? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move. Approve. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Little and a second by Ms. Malcolm. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the resolution for the MEAG voting delegate. Again, this resolution appoints Vice Mayor Larry Bradley as the alternate voting delegate for the MEAG election to be held in just a couple of weeks, or next week. Mr. Rosenthal?
Thank you, Mayor. Be it resolved by the mayor and the city council of the city of Monroe that John Howard is hereby appointed to serve as the city's voting delegate on the Municipal Electric Authority of Georgia's Election Committee with authority to cast all votes to which this city is entitled. Larry Bradley is appointed as an alternate voting delegate. So resolved the 7th day of July. That is the resolution, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Mr. Rosenthal? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Ross Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Malcolm. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Moving to the extension of the ordinance to temporarily modify certain city personnel policies. Logan, you want to take this one?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Didn't have any intention of bringing this back before you, but given the current situation in the COVID world, we just don't know how we're gonna have to react. We want to be pretty seamless and fluid as we do it. So I've got back before you an extension of the ordinance to temporarily modify the certain personnel policies of the city, which includes things like swiftly modifying pay structures, reduction in force provisions, work schedules, et cetera. This will go for another 90-day period, and that's pretty much the gist. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Probst? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
A motion on the floor by Mr. Dickinson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Ross Bradley for the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Moving to the extension of the ordinance to temporarily increase the spending authority of the city administrator, Mr. Probst.
Again, the same rationale behind this one. This is another 90-day extension. We've not used this policy at all yet, but given any emergency purchases that may pop up in our world, it's there at our disposal, so we don't have to call a special meeting. Of course, I would just have to update you ahead of time and thereafter for any purchases that we may have to do. But otherwise, same rationale behind this one.
So what is the spending increase you're looking for?
Yeah, so this one just goes up to $100,000 for any emergency purchase we may have to do for the general welfare, safety, health of the public.
It's just an extension, right?
It's just, yeah, it's an extension of the one passed back in March 26th.
Well, did you have to use the last extension?
I did not have to use the last one, no.
So why would we need another extension?
It's the same rationale, just in case we needed it, it's there so that we don't have to go forth and call a special meeting, you know, in order to approve a $98,000 purchase at the wastewater plant or something like that, you know, for some chemicals or something we need COVID related.
So, just for clarification, this really only affects those emergency spending things that are COVID related.
Well, I mean, that's the intent of it,
Yeah,
so,
that's what I'm.
yeah, that's absolutely.
You wouldn't use it for any routine purchases, it would be COVID related.
Which, you know, we already have the provision of the emergency purchases clause anyway. This is more for the COVID-related items. So
That's what I understood.
chances are we would not use it, but it's here in case we need it.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Rosenthal, would you like to read that one?
Well, just to clarify, let's go back to item number 7. It's fine that it went ahead and got passed, but that ordinance, just as the one that you're considering for you on number 8, utilize the provisions of our charter, section 2.12, waiving second reading and going ahead and passing it. The same is true for this. These are identical ordinances to the ordinances were passed in March 26, just updated to reflect that the COVID issue is still ongoing and continuing. So I think that Mr. Probst's analysis is correct. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I can certainly read it as well.
I think we can waive the reading. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Rosenthal? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
A motion by Mr. Dickinson. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Malcolm. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Moving to the first reading of the MGAG supply contract amendment and supplemental contract for Portfolio 5 project ordinance.
Just some brief explanation on this one. This is the MGAG supplemental contract, and it does two things. First, it establishes that debt may be issued for new acquisitions or prepayments through December 31st, 2030 for MGAG, of which we're a member. And second, it provides for debt maturities to not exceed 30 years from the date of issuances, whereas Portfolio 4 limits the maturity to 20 years. So those are the main items and takeaways from this rather large contract here.
So to clarify, when I said Portfolio 5, we are in Roman numerals, I wasn't supposed to say Project V.
You're correct.
Are there any questions for Mr. Probst before we move to Mr. Rosenthal? Hearing none, Paul?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City of Monroe for the approval of amendment to gas supply contract and supplemental contract, each between the Gas Authority and the City of Monroe, Georgia, and for other purposes. Whereas the 1987 session of the General Assembly of the State of Georgia adopted the Municipal Gas Authority of Georgia Act as amended, creating the Municipal Gas Authority of Georgia, provided for its organization and purposes, and authorizing it to contract with certain political subdivisions for the provision of an adequate and dependable wholesale supply of gas to meet the needs of the gas distribution systems of such political subdivisions. And whereas the city has studied and reviewed its opportunity to enter into an amendment to the gas supply contract with the Gas Authority substantially similar to amendments entered into with other Gas Authority members, providing for the extension of the term of the gas supply contract related to Gas Authority's obligation to furnish the city with its gas supply requirements and for the city's obligation to pay for such gas supplies. And whereas the city has also studied and reviewed its opportunity to contract with the Gas Authority for additional gas supplies, and to that end, the city and the Gas Authority have caused to be prepared a certain supplemental contract for the Gas Portfolio 5 project. And whereas the Gas Authority functions as a governmental joint action agency operating on a nonprofit basis solely for the benefit of its members and effectively as an extension and instrumentality of its members, aggregating their natural gas supply, management, and transportation needs for economies of scale and leveraging their human and financial resources for efficiency, resulting in lower costs and higher benefits to the members than if each acted individually or in smaller groups. And whereas the members control the Gas Authority and its policies through the Board of the Gas Authority, which is composed of member representatives, and through the gas supply contracts, and the members intend to collectively share allocable portions of all risk and rewards of the Gas Authority's operations pursuant to such contracts, and the contracts will necessarily be relied upon by the other members due, among other things, to the interrelated nature of the gas supply contracts and the relationships among the Gas Authority and the members affected thereby. Now therefore be it ordained by the governing body of the City of Monroe in meeting duly assembled and is hereby ordained by the authority thereof as follows. The city hereby finds and determines that it is in the best interest to contract with the Gas Authority, and the city hereby declares its intention to so contract with the Gas Authority for the purchase of its gas supply. The city hereby approves and authorizes the execution and delivery of the contracts in substantially the form of the drafts of the contracts attached to this ordinance as Exhibit A and Exhibit B respectively, and hereby incorporated by reference, subject to such changes, additions, and deletions made in the mayor's discretion with the advice of council. Contracts will each be executed by the mayor, attested by the clerk, and will have the city seal affixed thereto, and will be delivered to the Gas Authority, and when so executed and delivered, will be binding upon the city in accordance with the respective terms. Execution of the contracts as authorized herein will be conclusive evidence of the city's approval thereof. Section 3, in adoption of this ordinance, the city hereby recognizes that this action will be relied upon by other political subdivisions that own and operate gas distribution systems and that adopt similar ordinances or resolutions in furtherance of the organization of the Gas Authority under the Act, and that the city is also relying upon the adoption of such ordinances and resolutions by such other political subdivisions. Section 4, all ordinances or resolutions or parts of ordinances or resolutions in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. So ordained. Well, this actually is the first reading, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we'll have the second reading on that at the August meeting. Moving to the first reading of the alcoholic beverage ordinance. Logan or Sadie, who wants this one?
I'd be happy to have Sadie put her 2 cents in on it first.
Thank you, Ms. Krosick.
Okay, the main changes in this is adding a new license category. That's the alcohol beverage caterer, beer and wine license, and the alcohol beverage caterer distilled spirits license. And the reason this is requested and we're doing this is there's a business that wants to be a wine caterer for events, but not just city events. They would be able to use this license to get their state license that goes with it to be able to sell pay a vendor fee to us to do city events, and they also could do private events, and they also could be a part of other public events that other organizations or entities are doing within the city of Monroe. Our special event license, as it stands, it's a limit of 10 per year, so that limited them to be able to run a catering business with that license, if that makes sense. Questions on that?
We doing this for one person or anybody can apply?
Anybody can apply for it. That meets the criteria to apply for a license.
And I tried to read some of this, and I get lost in the verbiage, so excuse me if I ask crazy questions.
Go ahead.
The beverage caterer's license is, as I read this, is for the purpose of selling alcoholic beverages by the drink on premises which authorized caterer functions are to be held. So my first question is, what signifies an authorized catered function? Who authorizes it and what does that mean?
That would be, I mean, maybe city attorneys could clarify that question.
Like what events can now, under this, utilize an alcohol caterer that have not been able to in the past?
I think I can speak on behalf from working with the Boys and Girls Club, and I might be wrong here, so correct me. But when I was planning events for the Boys and Girls Club, we had to pull a special permit to provide our own alcohol. Whereas now, we wouldn't have to go through that process as a nonprofit to do it, but we could hire the caterer who does the food and would also bring the wine package with them, rather than separating it out into two different buckets.
Let me see if I can help answer the question. It's not an easy answer because what this license does, this license mirrors state law. So state law has a alcohol beverage caterer's license function just as, so we're just adding another layer of licensure to alcohol service, whether it be package sales, sales on, by the drink on premises, or in this case, alcohol beverage caterer's license. This is not about locations that are authorized. It's not as much about locations. That is actually going to be more of a zoning function. This is authorizing a business to obtain a license whereby they can be a caterer that has the ability to pour. Where they pour must comply with both state law and local law. So under our ordinance, where they can pour is currently limited to special events venues that have been registered within the city or at locations for special events. So an authorized catered event as defined really reverts back a little bit to state law because the ordinance says that they must comply with state law, and state law has various metrics, namely being you can't pour liquor in a dry county, you can't pour beer and wine in dry. So this isn't just about authorizing businesses to pour in Monroe. This is about authorizing a local license so that a local business can be an authorized caterer so they can pour either in Monroe or in any other jurisdiction where they would then go and buy the local permit for the event, which we have here. And then there's an economic development component to where if they're a Monroe business and they're pouring in our city, then there is no fee for them to obtain the permit. But if it's someone else pouring that's not a city base, then it's a $250 permit. It's pretty standard practice across most jurisdictions that allow authorized caterers. So now trying to fully answer your question, to see if I get it all the way around, is they still have to pour at a location that's authorized under our zoning ordinance, either at a special event, meaning the concerts where we're authorizing alcohol to be sold at those events, or at a registered special event venue, or at some other, there may be another location that I haven't thought about yet that we don't even have. They may be like at the, our zoning ordinance allows amusement entertainment facilities, something like that. They'd be authorized to pour there. They still have to be in a location where they're authorized to pour under our zoning ordinance and within the context of the alcohol laws of state laws.
Does it have to be at a nonprofit
No.
organized event?
It does not, but it didn't have to be a nonprofit before. It's the issue of they could go and obtain and state law doesn't require it to be nonprofit either. You can obtain a temporary pour license for a specific location for a specific event, either profit or nonprofit. It's the same structure. It requires both a state license and a local license. And the only difference between profit or nonprofit is the fee structure.
Are there any other questions? Anything else you want to tell us about? Because we have the expansion, right?
Yes, because this is one major component. The other big change in here is the expansion of the entertainment district. You do have a map. It's basically, it's expanding it to more of the commercial area within the DDA boundaries.
Yeah, so everything's gonna stay within current DDA boundaries. It just takes that Monroe Historic Downtown Entertainment District and draws it out a little bit more. As I've mentioned in the past, this downtown entertainment district has been cited as a huge reason why a lot of these restaurants and other businesses have decided to locate here in town. It's been very valuable to them, and it shows very well when we, go to market and entertain prospects to come here. They love seeing this, that we are forward-looking, and, it shows that we're kind of here to help the businesses along the way any way we can. So this boundary expansion, most of this is in commercial areas, particularly on the south side, and the east side of the yellow that is shaded in there. Those are the proposed expansion parcels.
Everybody okay with that? Any questions?
So from what point to what point is this actually adding to?
So the current one is in orange, and then anything that's shaded yellow within the current DDA boundaries is the proposed expansion boundaries.
Oh, so everything in yellow is gonna be added, basically.
Correct.
I'm guessing this piece that has the yellow lines through it is supposed to be all yellow?
That's cemetery.
It's a cemetery.
Doesn't really apply.
Yeah, they're probably not gonna do a lot of drinking there. Okay.
It applies, but it doesn't apply.
Okay, Mr. Rosenthal?
And
I do have another question.
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to understand this. If I'm on Church Street, coming out of the orange, going right on Church, and there's that small block is yellow, and then there are the 3 blocks of blue. What would they be? I guess I'm wondering why it didn't go all the way to millage. Is that?
The way the language is written is that any property on the boundary, so South Madison's a boundary, so it's any property in the DDA boundaries that's fronting on that boundary line is included in the entertainment district. So those are still in DDA, but they're not fronting on Madison.
I'm sorry, I missed this. Tell me that again.
South Madison is the boundary line for, the way it's written, for the entertainment district. And the way it's written is that any parcel that has frontage on the boundary line, which is South Madison, would be included. So those few parcels on Church don't have frontage on the east side, east boundary, which is South Madison. Does that make sense?
No, because neither does this bound back up.
They have frontage on Mill or
Can you walk?
Yes.
Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's what I'm asking, just curious, I don't know what they are. These blue sections here, why are they not also yellow?
They don't front on Madison.
Well, neither do these.
These front on Madison, and these front on the boundary line and Broad. So Broad is a boundary, and Madison is a boundary, and
A boundary to,
to the entertainment district, the way it's written.
this is the boundary, right?
Currently, this is proposing an expansion to these boundaries.
If I can, Vice Mayor Bradley, the way that it is drafted, the difficulty is in drafting an ordinance that doesn't end up with tails running all the way down Madison, all the way out Marable. Essentially, I'll explain it to you this way to see if it helps. There is an alternative if this council desires. The alternative, to simplify it, would say that it would be all of the historic entertainment district could be the same as the DDA boundaries. But I think the intent of staff is that those aren't necessarily the same intents. There's a lot of overlap, but there's areas of the DDA that don't necessarily need to be part of the entertainment district. The way that it's drafted that resulted in the map that you see before you is as follows. The northern boundary is East and West Marable Street. The southern boundary is 2nd and Mill Street. The western boundary is Jackson Street, and the eastern boundary is Madison Avenue, both north and south. In addition, for a parcel to be contained within the entertainment district, it must also be included in the DDA boundaries, and any parcel that is touching on one of the eastern, western, northern, or southernmost boundary is also included if it's in the DDA boundaries.
Good? Okay.
I'm not trying to get more into it, it just looked choppy, and I was trying to understand why it was choppy.
I think I know a piece you're talking about. We'll talk about it in just a little bit. It's just one big piece. Would you like to read the ordinance, please, sir?
I would. Let me just clarify just a couple more changes, and this is just some cleanup. There are about 3 or 4 Scrivener's errors that we're cleaning up. We are adding the caterer license fees. We're expanding the historic district boundaries. We're also cleaning up some ambiguity of what the hotels can serve. There was question on that. That's clarified now that it's only beer and wine for in-room service and not liquor. And then, of course, adding the caterer's license. You have attached, since this is a little bit of a more complicated cleanup, you have attached a track changes version that shows you all of the changes in red line for your review. This is an ordinance to amend Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Monroe, Georgia regarding alcoholic beverages and for other purposes. The mayor and the council of the City of Monroe hereby ordain as follows. Article 1. Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances is hereby amended by deleting the enumerated subsections as described and substituting with the following in lieu thereof, and by the addition of certain enumerated subsections, and by the addition of Article 11, alcoholic beverage caterers. See the attached Exhibit A. Section 6.8, the addition of subsection G, J, and K. Section 6.11, fees enumerated, the addition of subsections 16 and 17. Section 6.36, the replacement of subsection B. Section 6.37, the replacement of subsection A. Section 6.106, type of retail establishment where permitted, the addition of subsection 7, or the replacement of subsection 7. Section 6.110, the replacement of subsection A. Section 6.356, the replacement of that section. Section 6.401, license, the replacement of that section. Section 6.402, in-room service, the replacement of that section. The addition of Article 11, alcoholic beverage caterers. Section 6.701, definitions. Section 6.702, license requirements and restrictions. Section 6.703, age restrictions. Section 6.704, excise taxes. Section 6.705, state law compliance. Section 6.706, investigative and administrative costs. Section 6.707, timing of sales or consumption. Section 6.708 to 6.730 are reserved. Article 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. Article 3, this ordinance shall take effect from and after its adoption by the mayor and the council of the city of Monroe, Georgia. This constitutes the first reading this 7th day of July, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Are there any questions or comments? We'll have that second reading at the August meeting, and appreciate your input. Moving to the appointment of the library board. We have 2 seats available for the Monroe-Walton County Library Board of Trustees, which is a unit of the Azalea Regional Library System, formerly Uncle Remus. We have 1 applicant to approve tonight, and hopefully we'll have another for next month. Lynn Laird's term expired on July 1st. I've received recommendation from Ms. Cordon Bryan with the Azalea Regional Library System that Ms. Laird would like to be reappointed. She is a lovely lady. She lives right in town, and she is a great representative for us on that board. I need a motion to reappoint Ms. Lynn Laird for a 6-year term to expire on July 1st, 2026.
So moved.
Have Ms. Malcolm beat you out, Mr. Little. I'll take you as the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the ground lease agreement for Lee Roberts at the airport, Mr. Bailey.
Yes, sir, thank you. This was a last-minute addition. I had worked on it a lot over the weekend and then had to get everything kind of put together on Monday. It's to request the approval of an additional ground lease at the airport that will actually be on the northeast side of where Virgil Williams hangar currently is. And what we'll have to do is to clear that area, do some rough grading, and then extend Richard Parsons Drive. Just not very far, actually, to get this situated. So the actual owner, Lee Roberts, can pour concrete pad after he does final grading and move his hangar, which is currently in Gwinnett County. He was between us and Newton County, Covington. And apparently we worked out a better deal. So he wanted to be here, and I've got engineers taking a look at everything, but this will not be as difficult as what the T-hangers have been, because the size of the area doesn't require a permit for us to begin grading and clearing. So this is essentially just ask for the approval of the ground lease agreement so that we can begin work on that and hopefully do it in tandem with the actual grading of the T-hanger project.
How much is the ground lease agreement?
The ground lease agreement is for 20 cents a square foot. Over the 50-year term, it'll be approximately $26,500 revenue to the airport. And essentially, that area that will be graded will allow for 4 different hangars of this size. And I have kind of unofficial talks with another gentleman about doing the same thing.
Can I make this contingent upon final approval of our city attorneys between both parties and their review of this?
Correct.
Ground lease agreement?
So just one question. If I understand it correct, that the rate comes out to $44 a month that he'll be paying us, or they'll be paying us. And for that, they get the lease of the land, plus we provide all electricity and internet services. Is that correct?
Well, we provide the service, but they'll pay the utility fee.
That's not what it reads. I'm sorry, maybe what it reads.
Yes.
The way I read it.
We get everything to the meter, and then they're responsible for paying the utilities. It's taken.
The lessor shall provide electricity and internet utility services and access to the building at no expense to lessee.
Right, we provide the services.
Lessor will provide electricity and internet services at no expense to lessee. That's the wording. Sounds like we're providing it.
Well, we just changed that. That's just
I think that probably came from an old lease that was addressing the T-hangers possibly.
yeah, I used the same lease agreement and just missed some verbiage. So essentially, this was just asking for approval of the tentative lease, and then we'll go back through it with the attorneys.
Our office hasn't had a chance to review this, so we will review it and address that issue because we're gonna have to get a full plat too. So we've got a little bit before this can be executed, but if the
Correct.
council agrees with it in principle, then we can proceed forward.
How
subject
big
to
is
our
that lot as far as square footage?
The entire lot, I'm not real sure the actual hangar that he's requesting, because we're gonna clear off a bigger area so we can do 4. His actual hangar is 57 by 46.
57 by 46. How much are the T-hangers? I mean, what size are the T-hangers?
T-hangars, best I remember, the entire 16 unit is about 8,800 square feet.
No, I'm talking about per unit.
Just divided by 16. Not sure on the per unit, but this was, if y'all remember, the original ALP was actually drawn out to where on that side, past that gate entrance where Virgil actually enters, was set up specifically for this purpose with individually owned hangars. Because he has 2 planes himself, and he's looking to possibly purchase a third that he wants to keep. So, I mean, that's 3 additional planes that apply to our based aircraft that we turn into the FAA on a yearly basis.
Yeah, the problem I got is, the guys in the T hangar paying almost $300 a month. And you giving a guy more space for a whole lot less money. That's the problem I actually got with it.
But he's providing his own hangar. He's building his own hangar and he's pouring concrete. He'll
He
have,
also maintains his own hangar, correct?
correct. At which point, at the end of the lease, it reverts to us. So it's a little bit of a different ballgame because they're not having to build their own hangar. They're paying rent in a hangar that somebody else has had to build. Therefore, that's why the cost would be more.
20 cents is pretty competitive
Oh, absolutely.
A ground, yeah.
for ground lease.
This is the same structure as the T hangar deal that was approved. Same deal. He builds his T hangars. At the end of the 50 years, the city of Monroe owns those T hangars.
Correct.
We're not getting the revenue off of those T hangars. That's a private deal that's, I believe, supposed to be coming out of the ground soon. This is the same or similar deal that was done for Mr. Williams and is a pretty standard structure for how ground leases are done around the curtilage of municipal airports in most markets.
Yeah, and we actually heard back from 4 of the 5 members on the airport committee, and they were all for it.
This leads to more gas sales, more
Oh,
opportunity
yeah, absolutely.
in that area.
Hopefully some corporate style hangars.
Mhm. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
A motion to approve by Mr. Ross Bradley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. David Dickinson. Is there any discussion?
That motion was subject to attorney review and clarification of the
Correct.
utility.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
And any major changes would come back before council.
Well, I guess, understanding that in the attorney review, that catch that you made would be part of that review.
Right, and then I think Logan had amended it as prior to the motion. Any additional discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to my update, just quickly talked with Larry Ebert this morning at Piedmont Walton. He said the hospital's in recovery mode. They're back to doing elective surgeries. What they're looking at as growth in COVID cases are mainly between ages 30, 40, and 50. It just requires a hospital stay, but doesn't require time in the ICU. He said they're getting a lot of requests from surrounding areas, so they could possibly expand ICU 20 additional beds. We have plenty of ventilators, plenty of PPE, so as folks ask, and I'm sure they will, let them know that our hospital is doing an outstanding job. As a matter of fact, today they were just ranked the number 10 hospital in the state per the Lown Institute Hospital Index, which is light years ahead of where they were when Larry Ebert and Piedmont came in. They were failing grade at the time, and now they're in an A. That being said, one last thing, I will be nominating Greg Thompson to spend another 4 years on the board for MEAG. That meeting's next week. I've sent letters to all the mayors and their vice mayors, or their second voting delegates. And we should know something immediately. So as soon as we approve him and request his nomination, they'll pass him through, and he's been a really, really good asset to Monroe and has served us very well. That being said, I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Ross Bradley, a second by Ms. Malcolm. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.